object is not in contact with the that is the device which is used to get the information is not in contact with the object of your interest. It may be either an object or an area or a phenomena. It may be anything. You want to know the about anything that is present. You want to find out something on the earth, okay? Or you want to find out what is the forest cover, how the forest cover has changed, or you want to find out whether there is any disease or pest incidents in the field, or you want to find out what would be the weather condition, for weather forecast. Okay, for all these, we are using this technique, remote sensing. So here, the device is not in direct contact with the object. Okay. So the main concept behind remote sensing is the energy interaction with the various earth features, how various earth features interact with the energy. So what is the source of energy here? It may be
Solar, man.
okay, mostly good. Mostly it would be solar radiation, that is a passive energy. You have the solar radiation is a passive energy, whereas again you have different forms of energy, active energy, where you are giving some source of illumination. Here the source of illumination is the sunlight, solar radiation. Okay, so again apart from that you have different artificial sources of illumination. You may have different sources of illumination. Okay, so what happens when the solar radiation passes through the Earth's atmosphere? It passes through the Earth's atmosphere and finally comes and falls on the objects which are present on the Earth's surface. It may be a forest or a tree or a plant or a grass or the bare soil or some buildings or a water tank or a water a pond, a sea, anything it may be. So the solar radiation falls on all the objects. So each and every object has its unique reflectance pattern. Okay, so the energy which is incident on all these objects will do three works. That is, it may absorb that energy, or it may transmit the energy, or it may reflect the energy. Mostly all the three will be done. Okay, most of the earth features will absorb some amount of energy, will transmit some amount of energy, and it will reflect some amount of energy. And this varies based on each and every feature. Okay, so the trees, they will absorb a particular wavelength. They are interested in particular wavelength. That energy it will absorb, whereas the other wavelength it will reflect. That is done by all the objects, isn't it? How are you able to distinguish different colors? You say it is a red color, blue color, green color, isn't it? How is that done? Due to the reflectance, isn't it? One particular wavelength alone is absorbed by the object and all other radiations are reflected. So all the radiation which are reflected will interact together and in your eyesight it will form a different color. That is why you are able to view different colors. So the tree will absorb all the radiation and it will absorb certain radiation and it will reflect certain radiation, and all these combined together and it will produce a green color which you are able to see as green. Okay, so what happens to the energy, how it this is what we were talking now, the incident energy, the energy that comes from the solar radiation is the incident energy. It comes and falls on an object. So the object does three works. So the total of this, the reflected energy, the absorbed energy, and the transmitted energy is will be equal to the incident energy. So the incident energy, you all know energy can neither be created nor be destroyed, isn't it? But it can be transformed from one form to another. So that happens here also. Okay, but the for every feature, the amount it does may vary. Right. So the energy interaction depends upon the material or the feature. Okay, so the proportion of energy reflected will vary based on different earth features. A tree will emit radiation differently, water will emit radiation differently, soil will emit radiation differently. Similarly, one particular object, say the tree will reflect a different wavelength and it will absorb a different wavelength. Similarly, a soil will absorb a different wavelength and it will reflect a different wavelength. Okay, so these two, what to say, these two features, that is the energy interaction with the object, there exists a difference between the wavelength or the energy radiated or reflected based on the material, and the same object will behave differently, that is will reflect the radiation differently at different wavelength. Okay, are you able to understand the difference between these two, wavelength dependency and material dependency?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. Okay, so the reflection pattern, uh, all this we have seen already. The absorption, the reflection pattern happens as absorption, transmission, and reflection. Okay, the absorption, what we were talking, it is the amount of radiation that is absorbed, which has got inside the object. For example, the leaves absorb green light. Sorry, the leaves absorb sunlight. Transmittance means it passes through that object. Say there is some water on the soil. So it will transmit some amount of energy, isn't it? But if it is opaque, it will not transmit the energy. Whereas if it is transparent or translucent, it will transmit some energy. Even if it is opaque, some amount of energy as heat waves will be transmitted. Then reflection. Reflection means you all know bouncing back of the energy from the target or from the object. Okay. So this reflection is of two types. One is the specular reflection and the other is diffuse reflection. So this specular reflection happens in the places where there is a where the surface is very, very smooth. For example, here see in this picture, it is a well laid road, not like the roads which we find commonly in inside the cities. Okay, whereas in in national highways, all you find very smooth roads, isn't it? So this type of smooth road will have specular reflection. Specular reflection means the all the energy that falls on the object will be emitted or will be reflected in a single direction. Here you can find these arrows. The dark black arrows or incident energy, whereas the light black, the thin arrows are reflected energy. Okay, all the reflection happens in one direction. This is known as specular reflection. Whereas if this road is not smooth, okay, the laid which was laid very urgently for the purpose of some political motive has will be washed away within months. So if that is the case, then which kind of reflection can you expect? Can you expect a specular reflection in that area? No, you will have a diffuse reflection. Okay, say again, this is an example for diffuse reflection. This tree, so the canopy is not very, very smooth, isn't it? It doesn't have a very smooth canopy. So here the incident energy, incident light will be reflected in different directions. This is known as diffuse reflection. The reflection happens in different directions. Okay, so there are two types of reflection, that is specular reflection and diffuse reflection. Okay, the spectral reflectance. Okay, what do you mean by spectral reflectance? So the spectral reflectance is the portion of the incident radiation that is reflected by a non-transparent surface. Spectral. Spectral means what? It tells you something about the wavelength. Okay, portion of the wavelength. This spectra, which is a visible spectra, visible wavelength.